Okay, so for my learning teaching interaction, I went through a lot, all the questions that we had in the book and stuff like that, and I was thinking a lot about, like the roots and stuff of the family life education, and it was interesting how they kind of you thought about how in the book they talked about how it goes all the way back to the separation of church and state and just moms sitting around thinking and talking about how children should be raised and stuff like that. And I love how they also mentioned the PTA because that's really important in our school systems and stuff. Even today, a lot of people are part of the PTA, and it's really important. um, and I really, some of the things that I always was super interested in and that I kind of had an idea about working with family life education. And I really like the idea of family life education because the idea of therapy and like helping people overcome therapies kind of scares me personally, only because I worry about, the type of things that people will tell me and how that will affect me personally. um, you may or may not know, I work in a psychology office right now, and I talked to an LPC, which is a master's level therapist, in my office, and I was talking to her how um, about my classes and stuff, and because she specifically works with couples, and so I really am interested in what she does because she does therapy like couples therapies and stuff like that. And she's a super nice lady, and so I was talking to her about how I was nervous. I really love the idea of therapy, about being able to help people, but the idea and learning about family life education, which I learned about before in my past classes for family advocacy and stuff like that. And I really liked how I could teach people and be an advocate without having to be worrying about therapy. She told me that I had to find my niche, and that you might be able to do some things, but just you need to know what you're comfortable with and figure out what you're interested in. And I told her that something I'd always been interested in was having a having a type of situation where I would be able to teach people about marriage and family life, and also integrating finances. Really, I know a lot about finances and stuff like that. So I was always kind of interested in that. And she thought that was a really excellent idea. Another thing that I learned and talked about was the how to be professional and how to be and how to be ethical and everything. Sorry about that. My computer was about to die and I had no idea. Um, and I thought about some of the things, like what are some of the practical issues? Because that came up in the reading, what are some practical issues during this time? And I think that, and I also talked about this with the LPC in my office, about how, many people think that moving in together and cohabitation, and this lady that I talked to, and but this is like actual real statistics that people who cohabit before they get married, they are at greater risk for divorce. And not only that, but I think something else that she and I didn't talk about, but I thought about later, was social media. I think today that there's just a lot of people who want a lot of instant satisfaction, and there's a lot of miscommunication. And I think also that people get too involved in their social media instead of worrying about their spouse. I think that it's really important that I be professional with our family relations. I'm doing family relations, and I think it's important that we're all being professional, because we don't want to come across as just wanting to be their friend or what have you, because we want to be able to give them a professional experience. Um, Also, we want to be professional in a sense that we're ethical, and that if something is happening that's against the law, that we know that we're supposed to report something to the authorities, and that is an ethical issue that we're stuck with. I thought another interesting thing about the reading and stuff that I had thought about was why is it necessary to go to these underserved audiences? And I think it's because those are the people who, you're not only helping, one person or one family, but maybe generations to come, and more people will be able to know how to raise children based, a lot of people these days are like, oh, my mom or dad did this, so that means it's okay. But I learned in a past class about spanking and how the times have changed, and people, it's not just like a dad rules the roost and that's it, and his word is law. It used to be the culture back in the day, but it's not so much anymore. And kids know the difference. Just because something worked for your parent doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. And just because something works for one child doesn't mean it's going to work for another child. And that's something that's also interesting, because you want to be fair, but at the same time you want to make sure that you're going to your specific situation, the specific child's needs. And I think that is really important when you're trying to help people who need it the most, or people who don't have a lot of the knowledge already. And then the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels of family life education prevention programs. The primary, I really love the idea of, because I really wish that people would want to seek out this information before they even, know whether or not, like, I think that a lot of people should seek out information, because you want to be preventative, rather safe than sorry. You want to know as much information as possible, especially when it comes about your family and stuff like that. For example, I have one of the people that I'd love to get involved and get in to do this project as one of our people. They're engaged to be married, and I'd love to talk to them and give them some information about how to prevent risks in marriage before they even show up, which kind of brings us to the secondary. And I think this is where most people would seek out help, is when they know that they're at risk, or they have risk signs where it says, okay, we have this problem and this problem. We aren't experiencing any emotional, distress from it yet. But I think this is where people say, okay, we need to nip this in the butt. So let's go ahead, and we need to make sure that we are know, so we need to fix problems, but prevent them before they happen. And I think this is the point where most people would seek out that type of education, is when they notice their risk factors. And of course, tertiary is the one that I am on the fence about being a part of, just because I'm afraid that I won't be able to handle it myself as a personal matter, just because I'm worried about what people will tell me, which is something that I also talked about with my my LPC doctor in my office, who's a therapist, and she says that she cannot deal with certain patients because of the things that they'll tell her, and it affects her personally as well. So I mean, that's not something that is just unique to me or to one person. Even professionals like the ones in my office have difficulty dealing with certain types of patients, and others don't, and can definitely deal with those certain problems. And more power to them. We need those people out there. I love the also the part in the book where it talks about identify theories and teachable ideas, meaning like, get the research and then break it down. And that's kind of what I took it as, is, make sure that people can understand what you're saying, make sure that they're able to, put this into practice and help their families. I really liked, also we need to have, knowledgeable and scholarly literature. And we also need to remember cultural differences and be able to make teachable moments from scholarly literature and from honest and true research that we do to help people, and how to use these skills in real life, and how to practice them, and how to have good communication and things like that. If that may be the problem, or parenting skills, we should practice these things and teach them, how do we handle these types of situations? Well, this is this is a method we can use, and that is all part of teaching people how be a part of it. But I mean, when it comes to slipping into therapies, we don't want to have therapy sessions and but we mostly want to focus on the giving of information and not the therapy of it. I really loved all the approaches that were mentioned in the chapter, in the second part of chapter 1, about the expert approach and the facilitator approach. That one and the critical inquirer approach, as well as the eclectic approach, they all really kind of stood out to me, because I think they're all approaches that would be appropriate, and maybe even appropriate within the same type of situation, because like the eclectic approach especially, because sometimes you'll need to just be the knowledge and explain things to people they just might not know, and then you might want them to think about the hard questions. What do you think your parenting style is? What do you think we can do about it? Think about how you are, what are you doing now that you shouldn't be doing as far as parenting or in your marriage? And those are the hard questions that we need to ask, so that we can get to the actual knowledge that they need to have. So that's really what I thought of, and a lot of my insights from the reading and from thinking about it, and also from talking to my LPC who works in the doctor's office that I work at. So it's really helpful to have a resource like that. I am super grateful for them, and I plan to continue to ask for their opinions and information in the future. So thanks for listening.